welcome on day 3 of the EuroK 2021 Symposium. We had already 2 days, very interesting 2 days, and I'm very much looking forward to our 3rd day, to our last day of this symposium, where we will start with a panel, which is a little bit a different attitude, which is a little bit a different angle on how we look at things. So it's called the cross-industry panel. And I have very good guests with me for this panel, and we'll introduce them later on. Just briefly, a couple of administrative remarks. We have all the bios of our speakers available on our website. You have them also on the streaming site available. We are using Slido, which is part of your streaming page, so you can raise questions to our speakers, to the panel. We will have some poll questions where we ask your opinion on several topics, so don't miss that. And I would like to start immediately, before we start, with one poll question, which is, what are the obstacles to implement innovative technologies in aviation? Please rank the following items in order of the importance. So you have a couple of minutes in the audience, while we here at the panel will address the same topics. So how are other industry sectors approaching innovation and emerging technologies? That's always a topic in aviation, how we do that, how we get that certified, and how we get that implemented and deployed. So very happy to have a really interesting panel with me today. So first, Hugues Laverty is representing the medical industry today, and you have in your background already the flag which says Innovative Medicines Initiatives. So that sets already the scene. So I start with you asking the question, and please let me remind the audience also, there are pre-recorded messages already available on our website and on our YouTube channel. So all 4 speakers made already an introduction statement. So if you have time, please listen to it. Really interesting pre-recorded messages on their way how to address standardization, certification, and especially innovation. Hugues, what's the medical industry doing in order to get innovation and emerging technologies on the market?
So thank you for the invitation, Christian, and hello to everybody. I always have to start with a little disclaimer because I work at IMI, the Innovative Medicines Initiative, as you can see, and we're a public-private partnership between the pharma industry and the European Commission. So we're actually a funding body, and we're not a regulatory body. We don't get involved in regulation. What we actually do is we fund projects that are tackling key challenges within the drug development and drug discovery process. And we exist because bringing new medicines to market is actually very difficult. And I mentioned this in my pre-recorded presentation. What has always been judged in the development of a new medicine is benefit risk. And you're always assessing the benefit of a new treatment against the risk. And the whole process by which the regulatory process is based around building the evidence. So you do your preclinical testing, you then do your clinical testing, and then when you have sufficient data, the regulators may say, yes, you can bring it to the market, or no, you have to go back and start again, or you need something else. So it's very long, it's a very slow process, it's quite conservative. I noticed that I was the only one of the panelists with a black and white photograph, so that probably shows how conservative we are. But the thing is, it is really, safety is key to everything. Safety is there at the core. So you have to have the evidence that it is safe before you're allowed to bring a new medicine. However, having said that everything is incremental, and having said that everything is based upon benefit risk, you only have to look at the new mRNA vaccines that have come out for COVID-19 to see that the process can go very, very fast. So if we think last year we were wondering whether we would have vaccines, now we have lots of vaccines. And to the audience members, mRNA vaccines is an innovative approach. It's completely new. It has been talked about for many, many years. It's been tried in the preclinical, and it has failed for different reasons. But because of the pressure of the pandemic, the whole process has speeded up. And likewise, the regulatory process has speeded up. The regulators will tell you that safety has not been compromised, but they've been able to do things quicker that previous years or previously would have taken 4 or 5 years. So it's incremental. It's very much based upon benefit risk, but when there is a health emergency such as COVID-19, the wheels can turn much more rapidly. And we see that the mRNA vaccines that are coming from companies like Pfizer, BioNTech, they seem to be quite safe. And they seem to be very effective. So it can happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Jörg. Just for our aviation participants here, IMI is a joint undertaking, correct? Yeah. And so something like our CESAR joint undertaking, most of us know very well. So Green Deal, it's also a joint undertaking, so you're sitting in the same.
So there are several. So fuel cells, BBI, which is the bio-based industry. So we have a similar model where what we're trying to do is we bring the public come with new ideas like academics, researchers, universities, but then we also try to bring the industry in that are actually going to have the experience of bringing those things to the market. And we hope by bringing them together that we by fostering this collaboration, we can overcome challenges much more quickly.
And you mentioned one thing is safety is the most important thing. So I think that's something we are sharing within aviation. We always say no compromise to safety at all. Whatever it needs on investments, safety is not compromised. But maybe we are coming back to that a little bit later on, when we go in the second round. Next, Andreas Lassac, representing the telecom industry from T-Systems International in Germany. Andreas, the aviation industry is always looking into the telecom industry. When I was listening to your pre-recorded statement, I was a little bit shocked how long the process takes to get to the market. How you still manage it, to get innovation on the market, certified, integrated. You put a lot of effort in your statement, how you integrate, how you do the testing of integration. And I said in our meeting before, I have the 5th or 6th or 7th generation of my phone. I still have the 1st generation of my communication system in my airplane. Why do you manage that this way? Andreas, put a little bit light on that.
Yeah, Christian, thank you very much. Yeah. Maybe one of the ideas is that we really have a long history in telecommunication. Yeah? So the telecommunication standardization is the second oldest organization, global organization. Yeah? Only the Red Cross is older, 2 years older. So the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, was founded in 1865 already. Yeah, and since then, people working on innovation, yeah, in that area, and how are we managing this? This is a quite rolling process, I would say. Yeah? So there's people who are thinking about what is possible, what could be possible, and what is needed, and then they're doing kind of let's say functional recommendations. And after that, special groups are working on it to make a technical solution out of that, yeah, to make this happen. And also in our industry, there was a kind of big change, which came from in the mobile space, from the 4G to the 5G. So until the 4G, it was a completely engineer-driven kind of thing. So the engineers, the academics sat in their offices and thought about what could we do, and then if we are able to do it, we do it. And that has dramatically changed in the 5th generation of mobile communication, and will take place in more and more areas where really the users are asked what are their needs, what is really necessary. That is why 5G was designed like it is now today. Probably engineers would have done it quite differently, and that is why for the 5G there's a big community coming from the telecommunication, coming from the equipment manufacturers, coming from the users like automotive industry, like healthcare industry, who are all working in and saying these are our requirements for telecommunication, for mobile telecommunication. And that is how this is managed, but it's a long process. Yeah, so 5G has already started in 2014 with the first ITU recommendations, and now we have the first implementations. Yeah, so and currently people working on 6G already, which is planned to be implemented in or be on the market in 2030. So this is a long process. There's a lot of stages, yeah, from first ideas to what is really possible and what is really needed and what makes sense and how can it be integrated. Because everything what we are doing here is not be replaced at a certain day. We have to integrate it with which is already there. And this is always a year-long process to replace something. Now we are currently in the process to replace and shut down 3G. Yeah, we are using these frequencies now for 5G. But this is kind of that. But this is only let's say the broad communication level. Yeah, there's a lot of innovation below that. What can we do with this communication? So the devices is another kind of thing. This has a kind of different, yeah, because the devices are oriented at the recommendations coming from the ITU and the specifications coming from the 3GPP, third generation partnership program, where all these interest groups are organized. Yeah, but then the devices have to be developed, and then it's turning a little bit around, where other industries come in and say, hey, we have a requirement for a certain device, yeah, like in the chemical industry, for example, yeah, or in the aviation industry, and how does this come together with the needs in the telecommunication? So this is the kind of thing how this works. Yeah, so many interests come together, and based on these interests, innovation is managed. Yeah? This is a multi-fold driven kind of thing, yeah, with a lot of interests. Yeah?
Thank you, Andreas. I mean, there are a couple, not so many parallels, but there are a couple of parallels. I mean, you're also working on an international environment because we are connecting by phone or our phone in different regions of the world. So harmonization and interoperability has something equally important as it has in aviation. But I think what's quite interesting for us, that you have this rolling process. I think you called it rolling process when you mentioned it. So you haven't implemented 5G, but you started already 6G to develop 6G. That's not what we in innovation. Sometimes we have more work packages which has a start and an end date. We are not thinking in this rolling format. Maybe not enough, but very good impression on how you do that. My next speaker is Mirko Jakovljevic. He is with TTTech here in Vienna, and Mirko is working in the automotive area, but also in the aviation area. So he's actually part of a Eurocase working group, of one of the Eurocase working groups, and or at least he was for a while, and he knows the system, he knows us. So it's quite interesting to see what they are doing. And I know that you're working on several automotive projects in autonomous driving or in this direction. Maybe you can give us a little bit an insight how you do that and how you approach it in the automotive sector, and what are the differences to the aviation sector as far as you can see that directly.
Yes, definitely. So my company is working in different domains, aerospace and automotive, also space applications. And actually we are always part of some sort of big integrated system where many complex functions share resources, and actually the safety is always either some type of DAL-A system or ASIL-D in automotive standards and norms. And we see many synergetic elements actually in the future development of on the automotive side, especially. Why is that? First of all, the systems become more and more software intensive and electronics intensive, meaning they are more integrated, and there are also new architectures which are coming. Then we have new functions, autonomous driving, robotic driving. So there's no backup or fail-safe backup or person who would drive ultimately. And basically, your system, your technical system, is becoming the major point where you want to invest and minimize any risks on the safety side. So it is something that already started. So whole this movement toward safety started 20, 30 years ago, actually in automotive, but it was really initiated by the functional safety ISO 26262. And this standard still develops and adds new elements as people learn, what it takes to build a more safe system. They simply try to expand. For example, there are some, at the beginning, there was a idea, well, we can cover, for example, ECUs or boxes, basic safety approach to some computing units and software. But then they figured out, well, we need to go for more. Actually, we need to go more into integration and see the system as a whole. And then you come very closely to this aspects you have actually in all our standards for complex integration, for complex aircraft, for IMA integration, which will come into play at one point. But the elements for that, for this development, are visible already now. You can see that people talk about it. In some cases, they still have not passed the whole cycle of development to see which additional problems they have, but they are working on that. And I would say in 10 to 15 years, you would have probably automotive standards which would have many elements aerospace industries working on. The positive and interesting thing is these industries actually, so automotive has the power to move the ecosystem, semiconductors, SoCs, they can move that. They have this sheer size and volume. And aerospace can definitely profit from that, because it's very easy to lay into a bed which is already made and warm, and somebody did it for you. And if automotive does that, which is most, from my perspective, very probable, then it is a win-win situation, so to say. But on the other side, automotive can also take a look at what aerospace guys are doing, and will take a look, because they have very similar interest, I would say.
I think you have a good point, Mirko, and indeed, I mean, we see it. But if your company and if your company is working on both sectors and having some kind of same approach, I think you're benefiting already that. And maybe we do that more on an institutional level in the future. That could definitely be a win-win situation we are having.
Yes.
Okay, my last speaker is or panelist is Wolfgang Schleifer. He is representing the pharma industry, working with Novartis in Switzerland. And same question to you. And it might be a little bit related to what Hugues said already before, but the pharma industry, how are you approaching innovation and emerging technologies, Wolfgang? And you are very much, you explained the certification process in your pre-recorded message. I think it was more on the classes, on the different ones, but how are you approaching that?
Yeah, so in principle, we are a big pharmaceutical company. We provide we perform clinical trials, and we provide our drugs in quite a lot of countries. And so I'm responsible here in this context for connected medical devices. That means medical devices which we use usually to complement our medicine so you can imagine things like an auto-injector, which you use for our medicine, or a companion app, which you use then to check the adherence and these kind of things. But also something some solutions to accelerate clinical trials. And then in this context, what we even have is now a digital therapeutic, which means that the medicine is actually a software as a medical device solution. So the device itself is here the medicine. We developed it for lazy eye at the moment, so to treat really the lazy eye disease. So the situation here in the context of medical devices is slightly different to that what we have with our medicine. So how we do the certifications and so on. So on one side, the certification process has two dimensions, like I explained in the video already. So it has on one side the glass. The glass defines actually the risk this device has to the patient. And on the other side, it has different pathways. So we have 1 to 3 glasses. And in this glass, so one is a glass where you can imagine this is a kind of a toothbrush falls into that glass actually. Then you have glass 2, which is an auto-injector. And then you have glass 3 devices where you really rely on, where the patient relies with his health and his life on this device. So, and then on the other side, you have pathways. You have 3 pathways in general. The one pathway is about the 510K, and to give here the examples of the US health authorities, so the FDA. Other countries have very similar pathways and classification schemes. There are always slight differences, but in general they are very similar. And here for the pathways, the 510K is a pathway where you just have to show there are existing devices which are similar, and similar means not necessarily from technology similar. Similar means from purpose perspective, from performance characteristic perspective, and not necessarily the identical technology. And then on the other side, if you don't have such a device, if you come really with a novel device, then this is actually the novel pathway. This takes a little bit longer. Here you really have to prove more strictly that this device fulfills the purpose and doesn't impact the health of a patient. And then you have especially then for glass 3 devices, you have a certification process where you even have to bring clinical data that you show the benefits here clearly. There is another one, then especially for software as a medical devices, and this is a very, very new development the FDA came up with, which they call the pre-certification. So that means as a producer, as a manufacturer of such a solution, you go through a process with the FDA where they check your quality management system, where they check how you produce such a device, such a software as a medical device in this case. And based on the maturity of your processes, they tell you then, okay, you are level 1 or you're on level 2. And based on that, they say, okay, class 1, class 2 devices, you can just bring to the market without anything else. You just have to register that, nothing else to do. And clearly for high-risk class devices, you still have to go through a process with the FDA, but this is also a rather slightly different process then and lighter process compared if you don't have such a qualification. So the pre-certification is quite a new and novel approach from the FDA here, which I think is quite interesting. Let me give you another example. In the context of our clinical trials, when we use a medical device, so for example, a sensor or something like that, you can use an Apple Watch actually in a clinical trial. Apple Watch is actually not a medical device. Apple Watch has certain functionality, and you have to show actually for this context of the clinical trial that this device and the measurements of this device are fit for purpose. So you really go then, and how you do that is also very special, because you don't have to go through a predefined certification process for that. In the context of your clinical trial, you really define them very clearly. Okay, this is a fit for purpose. So you write something like a white paper, or you do a publication or something like that, a peer-reviewed publication. So something really which makes clear, okay, this device and the way you want to use this device in the context of the clinical trial, in the specific, very limited context, is fit for purpose. So I'll give you an example here in this. For something like that, we develop currently for osteoarthritis a new drug which should help you, which should help actually the regrowth of the cartilage in your knee. So what we have now as an artificial intelligence solution is we get an MRI, and this solution does then automatically from the MRI the segmentation of the knee, and measures the cartilage volume, thickness, and quality, and certain other parameters. So this kind of solution to go through, this is not a software, this is not a medical device, is not approved as a medical device. But in the context of our clinical trial, we can use this solution as long as we prove that the measurements make sense, and that the device, so this artificial intelligence, is really fit for purpose. So I think these were my examples from innovation perspective in my area of medical devices.
Yeah, thank you, Wolfgang. Just one question. I mean, Luke said it very clearly. We can be very quick, as we have seen in the vaccination for the COVID-19. When you speak about this innovation in other medical areas, so you said novel and unique design. So, for example, let's say something totally new to treat cancer in your body, and you give this device and some kind of autonomy in your body and your health is. So how long does it take from the idea to the certification? Is it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? Just that we have an idea.
From the idea to this full certification, I think this is always very difficult. I can tell you, when the device is actually finally developed and you have all the submission documents, the FDA gives a target of 180 days for such a novel device, a class 3 device, to do this, the approval. That's the target. Usually they're slightly over this target, but this is a kind of a high level figure you can work with.
Okay, thank you. So just go quickly to our first poll and see what's really the burden, or yes, in aviation for the implementation of technology and innovative solutions. So we see it's the financial impact for aviation. Second is the certification, and then it's really interoperability, and then only standardization, retrofit, and global harmonization. With retrofit, we mean you have an existing fleet in aviation where you change a system, you need to retrofit an existing fleet here. Okay, so very good. We take that with us, and while we go through the second round with our panelists here, let's start the second question, the second poll. What are the challenges in aviation to use performance-based and risk-based regulations? Please rank the following items in order of importance. So, and we heard yesterday at the visionary talk, and we heard Henry Kolderlei at the first day. So a bit more risk-based, a little bit more performance-based gives us flexibility in the system, in the regulatory system, but it has also some effects that we need a bit more guidance material eventually. So there are some ideas here. Let's see what the audience think of what is the challenge in order to make more use of that. We know that we have advantages. Let me come back to our panelists, and let me start with you again. So maybe you have an example where you say that was innovation, that was an emerging technology. We took it, we implemented, and that was a real success story. Can you share one of these? You have an example for us you can share with us?
I mean, I've already used as a very good example the mRNA vaccines, because this was a new technology that was been talked about. There's certain advantages with it, but there's certain disadvantages when it came to the manufacturing at scale and rolling it out. Also, vaccines are quite difficult to bring to market, because what you're normally doing when you have a new vaccine is you are vaccinating healthy people. So there, your benefit risk is really, you have to show there's absolutely no risk whatsoever, because you can't be giving a vaccine to healthy people and making them sick. And so that's a really good example. I mean, the fact that you have a pandemic really helps, because you have a lot of sick people, you're testing it in real time, that really speeds things up. It allows you to also really test the new technology, which was the mRNA. Of other areas where we're beginning to see a good progress, I mean, it's in personalized medicine, and the one that I think of is in engineered T cells. So this is where you take a person's own cells, you engineer them, and you put them back into the person to fight the disease. And we're beginning to see these are been authorized for use in cancers, because of course with cancer, the risk threshold is lower, because it's such a serious disease with such serious outcomes. But we're now beginning to see more of what are called these CAR T cell therapies coming through, and these are engineered T cells. So we are seeing some really good innovations that are really beginning to tackle some difficult diseases that have been ignored for a long time. And I just say here, it's the technology that enables it. Lots of people have great ideas, but they fall down on the sort of the implementation, or how do we manufacture, how do we design? But actually what really facilitates the innovation is the new technologies. So I think those are two good examples of innovations that are coming to the market now.
Yes, that's promising. So we have a lot of trust into your system. So thank you for that, for sharing that. Also for our audience, please make use of the Q&A options we have. So if you have questions to our panelists, don't miss the opportunity here. So thanks a lot. Andreas, what would be from the telecommunication side? What was the biggest success for you? And when you say, okay, that was innovation, that has really changed the world. I mean, we know one example. We always thought that Nokia was the market leader, and from one day to the other, the world turned around. Yeah, I think that was something nobody expected this way. But is there something else you can share with us?
Yeah, I think I was really thinking about that, and two things where I say this was really innovation that changed the world, and it's a small little plastic card, the SIM card you put into a phone, which made it possible to do all these kinds of things in a secure way, and to make it billable, and to really personalize things. That is all part in this little piece of in this little piece of plastic. So this was really a core innovation, to make all this communication possible. And then the next innovation, apart from a lot of technical stuff like artificial intelligence and all this, is how to use this kind of thing. So the next step forward is in this industry, not to differentiate anymore on the technology that is used. Yeah, so the first step is what we call is Open RAN. RAN stands for RAN. It's a radio access network. So this is the antenna and the analog digital devices there. And now we are on a way to say, we can't differentiate on that. It's more important that people have the best coverage and access to the networks, yeah, and that we differentiate on the services on that. That is the next big innovation there, apart from a lot of interesting things like you see in my background, yeah, that we bring it to the space, that we are talking about, 5G on satellites, 5G from stratosphere planes, and all this kind of stuff. Absolutely fine. Yeah, this is also innovation. But what's really changing are these things. So that is what I say. This is innovation. That really has big impact, for everybody, because you will have in the future the best possible network access through this Open RAN, and no more, oh, I'm just having a Vodafone SIM card and I can't use it here, and the next one says, yes, I'm telecom, I can use it here, but I can't do it 10 meters away. This is something that will be no differentiator more in the future. This are two innovations that I say that really change, that are not so very much known, but who have fundamental impact.
Okay, thank you very much, Andreas. Indeed. Mirko, in the car industry, you are now in the automotive industry. Okay, we have cars, they can brake on their own now. They're measuring the distance to the car before you. They're keeping the distance automatically. I mean, I was using a car on the Deutschen Autobahn, going 200 kilometers an hour, and the car is keeping the distance and braking on its own. But we are still using the same kind of engines as we did 100 years ago. So where is the innovation in the automotive industry? And what would be from your side the best examples to show how emerging technologies got into your industry?
Well, definitely software, electronic sensor fusion, new sensors. So I can remember like 15 years ago, we had a discussion with a big OEM, and they said, oh, we have now a new business area. We are avionics company. We go to automotive because they want to have radars or similar. And then they figured out, well, radar costing 25,000, I need to get into a $50 format, at a fraction of price, very similar performance. And they said, well, maybe it's better to turn to the area we know, already, and where we established and similar, because they figured out, well, all this innovation must be also low cost and similar. So the most striking part is how quickly the automotive industry adopts new innovations, and how quickly they increase the complexity of the system due to all this innovation. And basically what we know from our side, we saw at the beginning there were very few means how you could do this integration in automotive. Fortunately, my company was at the forefront of gigabit Ethernet backbone integration and similar. And also we had this perspective from the aerospace domain, integrated systems, where we knew actually how you need to deploy these technologies to guarantee non-interference if you integrate like 50 functions over several hundred scores or similar, how to put them together, how to ensure they do not clash with each other, and that you can integrate. And this was a kind of novelty which I see right now many companies already adopt, are even always better in that. And all of them deploy, this is not just about system integration. It's also about the capability for a vehicle to think on its own and really steer the driving process. And this is huge innovation already, which in comparison to what we had in the past, like, you are searching for systemic risks, you think about components which fail on their own and similar. But here, for example, you have situations where you have perfectly fine system, which in some specific situation would not behave as expected for different reasons. And a lot of research and innovation will go into this domain, ensuring that, for example, autonomous systems can drive within some specific constrained environment, that that this specific environment is constrained. That your car is designed exactly to fit this. And what I see is also that because you work with new technology where nobody is sure. So the certification authority do not know all the details of how things could go wrong. So actually, you have two sides. You have car makers, tier ones, and authorities working together, playing catch up to figure out how far they can go. And also there are many situations where from the past. You can see that the regulations and standards follow that what happens in the field, and they try to somehow wrap it up and solve the issues. And in our case, when we talk already about automotive, but also aerospace, because aerospace is also thinking about one pilot and autonomous pilot in addition and similar. We see that it is. There are different drivers how you get to these new regulations. One is emergency driven, like what you have in domain of health, public health, where people say, okay, this is necessity, let's do it, and there's a speed up. But on the other side, in this other domain, like it's more driven by the industry because there are innovators. Innovators typically are not mostly focused on safety, because if they think just about safety, they would never be innovators. They would sit on that what they have. They would not move a finger, So these guys try to bring new stuff into the market. They want to outcompete their other contenders in the market. They bring new paradigms, and this develops into some sort of push to regulators and to standard bodies to develop new standard approaches.
Yeah, that's indeed. I mean, you brought up a very good point at the beginning where you said, okay, they wanted to use radar, but that costs a lot. So you had to bring it in a price range where you can use it. And you really said the sensors, the electronic, the software made the huge difference. And that's actually the result of our first poll is really the financial impact. How do we fund it? So we don't have the mass market as you have in the automotive industry. And you mentioned that in your introduction statement already. That's one of the biggest statements. So that's the reason eventually aviation needs to connect somewhere where this mass production takes place, and you can share those costs, those development costs. Look, I just want to come back to one question. One point you mentioned, I forgot to ask you that, because you said it needs to be absolutely safe. When we say absolutely safe in aviation, we mean 10 to the -9th of probability. Is there something in the medical industry when you say super safe or absolutely safe?
I think I prefer Wolfgang to answer that question, because the answer from the perspective of human health and medicine's development, it's very difficult to say that anything is absolutely safe.
Absolutely.
This is why the regulators are always talking about benefit, risk. So as I give the example of mRNA vaccines versus cancer. In cancer, the risk from cancer is highly likely that you will die with infectious disease, like with public health emergency. You're talking about a certain percentage of the population that might die. And so the regulators in the sort of pharmaceutical space are always having to say, okay, what are the risks associated with this innovation, this new treatment, versus the benefits? And so that's why I would say that in the medical field, nothing is absolutely risk-free.
Okay, so you're using a risk-based approach. That's what you explained several times in several ways. You're really using a risk-based approach. Yeah? Yeah. While we are saying, okay, if it is a transport category airplane, more than 5.7 tons, 10 to the -9th. This is prescriptive the old way. Now on drones, on the newcomers in aviation, we see that differently. We also go more in the risk-based approach, and that's what we mean. And that's where also our second question comes in. And I think that's what we can learn. But I switch over as Wolfgang wanted to relay this message to, or this question to you directly. So maybe, first of all, yes, maybe you can answer that. And secondly, from Novartis perspective or a pharma perspective, what's your best example in showing innovation and emerging technologies?
I think you explained it already, right? There's only one thing I can add to that, is actually that the group who takes the risk needs to have also the benefits. I think this is one of the ethical principles which we have to follow here. So you cannot do now, for example, clinical trial tests on in one specific country in Africa, and then the people in the US or in Europe have the benefit of a well-developed drug, which is completely safe, or which is safe enough to be used, where the benefits significantly exceed. So I think this is the one addition which I would make. From innovation perspective, I think you also mentioned that the clinical trial length is definitely a challenge, but you have also other challenges with clinical trials, which is simply the way you get, we call it subjects in clinical trials, so patients joining clinical trials and going through with us through the test of this new medicine. And there are many challenges. I mean, you can imagine people who are disabled, people who have really severe disease like MS. They cannot, they are not mobile. They have difficulties. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes people are living far away from clinical trial sites. So there are many reasons why of such challenges to attract such people to join a clinical trial. Even they would potentially benefit significantly from that as well. So the whole concept, and now especially with the pandemic, we have seen also the whole concept of digital trials becomes much stronger. So we have seen a huge push that people accept actually that we replace certain visits in clinical trial sites with digital solutions. So you can imagine wearables and all these kind of stuff, digital biomarkers, which we use, then complemented by a remote nurse who can take certain blood samples and these kind of things, right? So this becomes now more the general way of going, and now you can imagine where it goes. At a certain point in time, you can imagine certain clinical trials are done only remote. I mean, this doesn't work 100% for all clinical trials, but the most interesting thing, and I think this is also a relevant one for you, is the last stage. This is the digital study. The digital study has actually two components. One is simply you prove based on real-world evidence data that your medicine works and is safe enough. I don't want to discuss that. The other one is actually the digital twin. So you realize actually that the digital twin, and currently we are talking about an organ, so it means a digital twin of a heart. And based on you can test actually your medicine on a digital twin in silico. So it means really you simulate on your model, on your digital twin model, the treatment, so the medicine, and see the outcome. You see the safety related effects, the adverse events, and especially also the benefits of this treatment. So such digital twins exist not only for a human heart, that exists also for devices. I know our partner is Philips, as an example. They created digital twins for their MRI machines, and for that actually they can proactively see if when the maintenance is necessary, so they reduce actually the downtimes of such machines. And I think this could be something which is really relevant for your industry here as well.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. So we have a couple of good examples. And just to remind the audience that we still have our second poll open about the risk-based and the performance-based approaches. We have heard already a couple of examples. Please let us know your opinion, where where the challenges are in aviation as we go ahead. So we have talked now a lot of good examples where we see technology, innovation, emerging technologies have helped us, where we had good success. Do we have examples where we can share where we know, okay, that was an idea, but it didn't work so well? So actually, on the opposite, do we have negative examples where we implemented things which that at the end of the day did not work out as we explained? Or you and your industry want to share with us and saying, let us, that's something, if you miss that part, you would save a lot. Who wants to start with?
So I can start. So actually, so we don't have this kind of things here for sure, you know. Yeah. No, but this is two things. So one is what is the fundamental technology we are using, and as far as I remember and I see, there have not been so many dead ends. There have been technologies that didn't work out as expected. For example, for security organizations, the TETRA network. Maybe you know that this is a special network which has certain functionality, but this was a manufacturer-driven kind of thing, but the organizations have never been happy with that because it has certain limitations. That might be a good idea, a good example for innovation that didn't really turn out. On the other hand side, if it has not been overtook by the GSM development, the 2, 3, 4G, 5G development, it might be still the best technology for security organizations. So it's a little bit to decide why is it not so successful. If you do not have anything that is better, it's probably still successful. But if then something comes that is better, has more functionality, is easier to use, is cheaper, then probably a technology fades away. So that is a little bit how I see it in the telecommunication and IT industry. But for sure, there are a couple of developments of devices and so forth where people thought this is, wow, this now will change the world, and didn't turn out. But this is small things, I would say, on the big successful way forward in this industries.
So
you mentioned. Hold on. Miguel, I take a second, but just Andreas, that I reflect a little bit what you said, because in your other statement you said now it's not the engineers driving really the innovation, it's the market also. And here your example is also that the market took something over, which was then a product at the end, which was not driven by the rest of the industry. So that needs to be at least addressed at the right time. Is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah, and what I mean is a good example is really this, what is now based on 5G technology and on the internet technology as such. There was a certain threshold, I would say, when people on a broader way took over this technology and understood the benefits. And now there's a pull for more, but also this pull for more is igniting a push for more of innovation. So this is something that is fruitful, or the fruitful for both sides, so to say. And this is really something that we see even more in this. The telecommunication is spreading out into the automotive industry. Now we have the connected cars. The cars, every new car has a SIM card built in. So there's no car that doesn't have, from regulatory perspective at least, for the e-call system. Yeah, and this is now also spreading out into others. So medical devices, heart pacemakers have a communication unit attached to it. So not in the pacemaker itself, but the communication unit. There's a SIM card in, and also from there is coming more and more pull for innovation to bring this into other industries, into other devices. But this is the understanding on the other side, I would say, of the fans. So if you're allowed to say that, to understand what is possible with technology, and also what is necessary, and then bring these things together. This is something that is even faster now going forward. That really multi-discipline coming together for further innovation.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Andreas. Mirko, we also have a question mainly for you. A recent article proclaimed driver assistance in a regulatory gray zone. What is your opinion on this? Do you see aviation style regulations slowing down progress for the sake of additional safety? And maybe that goes also, that seems to be a block. And what is your example? What is your negative example?
Well, if you have a lot of innovation in a short time, there must be some consequences, either for the perception of the specific technology. For example, if you have some sort of marketing saying that your system is so good that it can do everything that you want it ever to do, like drive you through the streets without any intervention, you can sleep in the car, or similar. It is kind of a negative connotation, because there's a clash between marketing stories and what the systems can really do. And this is one part of the story. This happens. Major companies in automotive industry, they are very aware of product liability, and they actually over deliver and tell you that they have less. Yeah, so that just to ensure there are no risks and the perception is not too high. But on the other side of the equation, you have very innovative companies which tell you something that does not really hold the water, but it sounds like it can do everything. And definitely there's a kind of a gray zone where people do not know how to handle it and learn how to do it. But this is probably over the history of safety practice, it was always like this. You first agree on something, everybody learns from everybody else. Yes, we understand what we are talking about, we reduce risk, and then some new paradigms come in and rocks everything. And in this case, guys, whole community must come with something else. In our case, actually, there was a movement toward, okay, let's figure out how to do this in the scope of sort of safety of intended function, and then let's spend more time with understanding this function and similar. So you do not close the gray zone, you just make it much smaller, and you minimize again your residual risks you would have in the process of development. But you can also not rely on the existing practice, because it does not help you. So you need to be very inventive and find something out. Yeah. So this is how I see it. The biggest problem actually is the level of marketing in some statements. Yeah. But otherwise, in general, I think industry is going to the right direction. Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, indeed, Mirko, I think automation was also a big part of the safety level we have in aviation. So we are automating a lot, and I also very often call it to give the pilot the right information at the right moment to make the right decision. So this is also something, we all have autopilots. We have now even systems in general aviation airplanes, so in small airplanes, that they can land automatically without if something in the air happens. So indeed, just quickly to come back to our poll question, I think we have an answer for that. Thank you. So what's really the challenges in aviation of performance-based and risk-based regulations? It's the certification and approval process. It's number one. Difficulties in the interpretation. Yeah, that's true. I mean, a risk-based approach. Additional guidance and AMC material is needed. So we all know that if we have a performance-based regulatory frame, there are many means of compliance, so acceptable means of compliance. And then the regulatory oversight, additional standards and time to market seems to be more on the lower side. So thank you very much for your feedback on that. So that might be something we could share now with Wolfgang and Luke on if this is also their experience. And my last question to all of you would be, what can aviation learn from other industry sector approaches to innovation? So we have heard a couple of them today from our panelists, but maybe you have additional points you want to share from the audience while we go and ask Wolfgang next on his example, the negative example.
The negative example, yeah, I think we, in the context of our medical devices and how we support clinical trials, we have usually the negative examples when you start with the technology. That means the right way of doing it is you have to think about the clinical meaningfulness of the measures, and then based on that, when that is clear, when that is also validated, that you say, based on one of the previous examples which I gave, that the thickness of the cartilage has really an influence if you have to do a replacement of your knee with an artificial knee. If that is really proven clinically, then it makes sense that you think about how I can actually measure the thickness of the cartilage. So starting actually with the clinical meaningfulness, and then following with the technology, which technology can really measure that with the required performance, with the required quality, and then also thinking about the operational part. So if you have devices which have to work in several countries with going into the network area, to the telecom network area, so also with different standards and so on. So this is something which you also have to think about. So can you get these devices in the different countries? Can you operate it in a remote setup with the different standards they have there from telecom perspective and so on? So these are the challenges you have to face then, or you have to think about then last. But the order is very important.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Look, I warned you, I will ask you this question because I just recently, home office and the lockdown forced me to sit a lot here where I'm sitting right now on my in my office, in my new office. And all of a sudden I had an intervertebral disc displacement. I hope I'm using the right term. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor gave me an injection. So I got every second day a shot, and I say, okay, but what is it? They say, if it's not better after 5 weeks, after 3 to 4 weeks, we do an MRT. And I always make this example saying, okay, if we do that in aviation, if I tell the passengers, we had a problem with the right engine. If this is going on for 2, 3, 4 flights, we will have a look. So why are you doing that? And eventually, to answering my question here, maybe you can answer also if you have other areas what you want to share, which are where innovation and emerging technology had its downside.
So yeah, we talked about this before, but I think it's sitting in the background of the discussion, and its financial impact. So you've got to remember that the healthcare, I mean, it's very expensive. And so therefore, doctors, clinicians, healthcare services are making these judgments about, well, who needs this treatment? Who needs a scan? Who needs, and I'm afraid with an aging population, these questions will come up more and more because we have more things go wrong with us, not just a bad back. So I'm afraid there's always a financial constraint as well in terms of the delivery of healthcare. And so therefore, they need to be sure, in this case, they probably needed to be sure that it's a serious issue before they plan some sort of intervention. Regarding things that have gone wrong, I mean, the drug development process is highly attritional. It's all designed and developed. And so there are many, many interesting examples of new molecules or new innovations that don't make it for different reasons. I can remember when I was a student in the 90s, there was a huge excitement around oligonucleotides as treatment for cancer. And it was been sold as this is great because they're small, we can make them, it'll be reproducible, it'll be fantastic. The problem was the experience wasn't very good, and they appeared to be more toxic than the current treatments. So they didn't come forward. Another very good example is this area where trying to use your own body to fight disease. And it was thought that you could pump prime the immune system, get it more active, and then your cells would fight cancer or fight some sort of autoimmunity. And there's a really famous example of this. This is the De Janeiro case, 2006. They developed this molecule, which was an antibody that was going to stimulate T cells. All of the data preclinically looked very good. In vitro, in vivo, they took it into the first phase 1 clinical trial. So phase 1 clinical trials are based on volunteers. You're looking at safety. They give it to 6 volunteers, healthy males. They all had severe toxicity, to the point that they all ended up in hospital. Several of them, I think 4 of them, had organ failure. Some needed organ transplants. And when they went back and they looked why this was, it actually was that a big challenge we often have in drug development is this translatability between species. So you're meant to test your new medicines in several species to determine what sort of toxicity is it tolerated, and then you go into humans. But that was a big lesson where it was a really clear example where that mechanism of action did not translate between the animal models and humans. And so therefore, the learning from that was nowadays, a much bigger weight is put on to understanding the mechanism of action and really showing that what you're observing in your in vitro and in vivo, so in your preclinical models, will come through, actually translates through into humans, and you won't have problems. But there are many examples like this where new ideas are actually tested in complex biological systems, which unfortunately humans are. And we find out the things we don't know, and therefore many innovations fall by the wayside because we don't understand them well enough, or they're not appropriate, or they're not what we thought. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, the speed of the way we are sharing information nowadays. I don't know if you addressed that with that.
Yes, I mean, this is one of the things. I mean, when you bring a new medicine to market, there's already a mechanism by which adverse events, so if you have a toxicity or a problem, you can report to the regulators, and they're always reviewing this. The problem now is for the regulation to keep up with society. So now people aren't going to the EMA's or the FDA's website to report a toxicity. They're going on social media, they're going on Twitter, they're doing whatever. And so this information is spreading. And the big challenge there is, how do you determine what is actually a problem with your medicine and what is actually hearsay or coincidence with something else, or another? How do you separate what is basically gossip and chat from an actual kind of adverse event? And this is where technology, sensors, all these sorts of things will actually help. But we're just at the beginning of this process of trying to tackle with this flow of information. And I should say in the social media, it's unregulated information. And I think that's the challenge.
But I think maybe I think we need to find ways to deal with that. So we are doing this as well. So we have people who are constantly monitoring the social media, also to identify if there's a certain problem in the network coming up, because it's earlier in the social media than we get a call, or that we see it in our management systems. So there's interesting to see that also from your angle, that first reports will be in the social media before they really reach the regulatory or whoever or the doctor, and so forth. Yes, interesting.
I think in many cases, the systems the regulators have in place are used by healthcare professionals, hospitals, doctors, nurses. But the new complication, it's not that nobody is reporting, it has been reported. The new complication is, what do you do with this unregulated flow of information?
Exactly.
How do you know what's right? How
Exactly.
do you
Yeah.
not?
Now
So,
everybody becomes an expert. Yeah.
yeah, well, yes.
More or less.
More or less, yes.
Wolfgang, the same experience on your side? Do you think that Facebook is ruling more than you want to?
At the moment, Facebook is not necessarily our biggest problem here. From a regulatory perspective, it's mandatory that we listen or that we check actual messages which in forums which we own. So means on our website, if someone leaves a message, or if we have an account we have several accounts on Facebook, we have several Instagram accounts and so on. So someone leaves a message there and says, hey, I had this side effect, I had this adverse event. This is something we must follow up. Now you can imagine, I mean, we have worldwide in the magnitude of 600 to 1,000 websites. We have thousands of social media accounts. So this is huge for us as a company to deal with. And now not all messages there are adverse events, right? We really have to listen to that. So we develop really solutions like social listening in combination with artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithm, which filter out those messages which are clearly not adverse events, and then actually looking a little bit more into the details of those which are suspiciously adverse events.
Okay, we are coming close to the end of this session. Extremely interesting to discuss with you, extremely interesting to learn from you. And we see that society, you also mentioned in some of your statements, the ethics behind social acceptance and so on. So it becomes more an effect on that. I think Mirko, the aviation and automotive industry is sharing here also that the negative event immediately takes over the good things we have done in the meantime. We have a super safe system in aviation, but MH370 will not be forgotten for anyone. Everybody knows this accident, but okay, we indeed we have to deal with that. Okay, the result of the last question. What can aviation learn from other industry sector approaches to innovation? So immediately, to be a bit provocative, we can learn a lot from other industry. Sometimes we in aviation industry have the tendency to think we are so special. That's true. So complex that there would be very few benefits to work with other industry companies. We should have a more open approach to innovation and to do not hide behind the regulatory standard safety or avoid questioning. So really good. That's something you addressed, Mirko, quite well. I think that goes along these lines. Safety remains paramount. It's written here. That's true. I think this is, but for most of us, we spoke today, it's really safety is the highest priority. What about the trial and error approach of SpaceX in the development of its Starship? Risky at first, so far unmanned, but faster to market with disruptive outcomes in space travel. A similar leap took place in the aviation during World War II. Okay, that's an approach I think I don't know, but maybe for drones or other newcomers. But we need to think of that to make operational procedures as simple as possible if the procedure touches critical parts of safety, and to prepare for the place for users if they contribute to innovation and safety by demonstrating something. Okay, yeah, procedures, simplifying procedures. I mean, I'm a pilot myself. That's indeed something which we are benefiting a lot. Manage safety risks rolling development deployment cycles. I think that's something Andreas inspired us a little bit in rolling development and deployment programs, but also managing the safety risks is something we have seen today in the pharmaceutical and the medical industry as well. Taking a more risk-based approach, regulatory working with industry to set appropriate levels of failure probability. And the last example we got was aviation regulations should be simplified to meet the same intent while considering competition between countries, time to market and costs. There is a general sense of bloat in the regulations throughout years of presence. Perhaps a safe optimization is in order. So those are the reactions of our audience on that. With this, I thank my panelists really a lot for joining us. It was a different approach on how we look into innovation and emerging technologies, learning from you. I hope it was as much as interesting for you as it was for me to chat with our colleagues. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a great pleasure to be here with you. And yes, the session will be online soon. So if those who are not able to follow the session today will have the chance later on. So thanks for that. With this, we prepare for our coffee break. And after the coffee break, we are going into our next panel, panel number 5, standardization for a sustainable recovery. So let's see, with this, I hand over and we see each other in 5 minutes, so around 13:22. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We set standards that define communication and information solutions for safety-critical environments. Reliability and performance in control centers when it matters most.
Notruf Feuerwehr Rettungsdienst.
Ja, wenn sie bewusstlos wird, rufen Sie nochmal die 112.
Flughafen Feuerwehr, der Notruf.
Frequentis is the global market leader in voice communication systems.
Request information on track number Alpha Alpha 010.
Autorizado aliar decolagem, mod 09.
As a technology driver, we provide solutions for traffic growth and capacity challenges at times when airspace users are changing. Performance is measured in seconds when lives and livelihoods are on the line. Police forces, first responders, public transport dispatchers, maritime operators, as well as search and rescue coordinators rely on Frequentis technology to keep us safe at all times. Safe transportation of people and goods is needed locally and around the world. Our focus on research and development is based on a deep commitment to innovation. We shape the way technology develops actively. We focus on technologies that impact our future and find the winning approach. We apply latest technology which builds on improved data exchange and collaboration, enabling visionary concepts of operation. Our products and our people operate globally. Locations on all continents and close cooperation with our customers give us a solid understanding of regional needs. We shape standards together with clients and global institutions. We are Frequentis, 1,900 employees globally with safety-critical DNA, as well as passion and experience. We will continue to keep 3 billion passengers safe every year. We are Frequentis, and our commitment is a safer world.